All right, we're going to call this meeting of the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District to order, please. If we could please rise for the pledge. Ms. Justin, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Okay, if we could do roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Schultz,
Present.
Mr. Ustrup,
Here.
Mr. Bailey,
Present.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Ms. Klug. Here. Mrs. Justum. Here. Mr. Sikich.
Present.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
President Emmons.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
I have nothing.
No, board members? Okay, we move on to public comments. And then we move on to item 7, the superintendent's report. Dr. Lexman.
Great, thank you. We'll start with 7.1, report from the West Dallas Central High School student representative. So welcome back and tell us about what's going on at Central.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mackenzie Gordon.
And I'm Cody Nelson, and we are here with your monthly school board update for West Dallas Central High School.
An athletic update. Our student athletes are off and running with their winter sport athletic seasons. Our boys varsity basketball team took a win last Friday against Greenfield. You can come check out our student athletes in action with the girls basketball program at home tomorrow with games tipping off at 4:15, 5:40, and 7 p.m. The girls hockey co-op team is also at home with the puck dropping at 4:30 p.m. at the Ponds in Brookfield. Our co-op boys swim and dive team, the West Dallas Wave, are in action on Wednesday at New Berlin Eisenhower with competition starting at 5 p.m. Our boys basketball program is in action on Tuesday at Wisconsin Lutheran and Friday at Greendale. Games tip off at 4:15, 5:40, and 7 p.m. on both dates. Finally, one of the longest athletic events in the state history takes place on Friday and Saturday, and it is our 47th annual Stack Wrestling Invite. The competition starts at 5 p.m. on Friday and 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. From two Bulldogs to all of our big fans here, we look forward to seeing you supporting our classmates and peers in one of their upcoming Bulldog events.
On Saturday, dozens of West Dallas Central students volunteered at the annual Target shopping event for area families in need. Student athletes, AVID, and NHS members helped make the event run smoothly. Students provided assistance to families who were shopping that morning, beginning at 6:30 a.m. Even the Bulldog mascot made an appearance thanks to Maya Acker. Overall, this is a fantastic event, and Central is very happy to be a part of it each year. Parent-teacher conferences happened on Thursday, and it was Central's second parent-teacher conference of the year. Families of all grade levels met with teachers in their classrooms to have an in-depth discussion about how classes are going. With each end of the semester only about 1 month away, this was a great time to make plans for improving grades as well as maintaining good ones. On December 5th, Central held a college career and financial aid night for students and families from Central, Docky, and Shared Journeys. This evening began with a spaghetti dinner prepared by Miss Boyd and Miss Bisworm with the help from students such as Trinity Brown, Colin Wright, and Antasia Ridge. Following dinner, brief presentations were given by representatives from the UW system, MATC, Wisconsin Private Colleges, and Armed Services. In addition, seniors and their families were able to receive help with filling out FAFSA or filing out college applications. The turnout was excellent, with many families receiving information to help students with post-secondary plans or assistance with FAFSA. The event was a team effort by the Student Services Department, the AVID program, and the Parent program. Thanks also goes to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Summerfield, Mr. Haywood, Ms. Hanson, and Mr. Rutson for attending and assisting with the evening program.
International Holiday Display and Market. On Friday, Central and West Milwaukee Intermediate hosted an International Holiday Display and Market in Central's Auditorium Commons. Open to all district students, families, and friends, the event contained tons of things to get us in the spirit of the holiday. Attendees checked out holiday tree displays, live entertainment, holiday culture display, Santa, and there was even a children's area. Cultured food was available for a small fee, including cookies, horchata, hot chocolate, crepes, and more. Thank you to Ms. Acevedo for her leadership on this. as well as Central and West Milwaukee intermediate school staff, student union, Black Student Union, Argario Latino, and World Language departments. It was a great event for all who attended. Food drive. Over the last week, Interact and Skills USA held a canned food drive for the holidays. In addition to collecting canned food and other non-perishable items, they also held a Miracle Minute to raise money to buy food items. The goal for the food drive is to provide the food pantry at St. John's Church as many food items as possible for the Christmas season. Thanks to Mr. Owens for his leadership on this.
Over the past month, Ms. Harmeyer's 6-hour science class has taken on a recycling project. Students began by learning about waste and the importance of recycling. Students also began researching different ways Central itself can recycle and determined there was a need to begin a recycling program for cans and bottles. Students wrote letters to Mayor Devine requesting large recycling bins that we can place around the school to encourage students to recycle. On December 4th, students went to City Hall and met with Mayor Devine to discuss our plan. They received a tour of City Hall from the mayor himself, and we received our receptacles to place in the school. And we can't forget a huge thanks to Mr. Curhan's class who cut holes in the top for easy access. Phase 2 is coming up where students will determine the best placement for the bins and begin writing and submitting announcements to teach students the importance of recycling and about our new program.
And now on to what's coming up at Central. After exams, after Christmas break, we will all be getting ready for semester exams. From January 21st through the 23rd, students will take exams for all their classes and finalize their semester grades. As seniors, we are excited that this is our last time taking first semester exams. The 3rd annual Bulldog Expo will take place on January 22nd from noon to 2. At this event, all District 8th graders attending Central next year will come and visit to learn more about our athletic programs and clubs we offer. The event is well organized with students choosing their schedules in advance of what they want to learn more about our school while they're here. It's a huge effort from staff and students to make this an amazing event for all attending. If you are free during the expo, we invite you to come by Central and check it out. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask the organizer, Ms. Grolowski.
That was January 22nd?
Yes, from noon to 2.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a wonderful break
You
and great
too.
exams.
Thank
Thank
you.
you before that.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.2, the legislative update. This is all focused on just one effort in Madison. So this is getting called the Return to Work Bill for teachers. So under the Wisconsin retirement system, participants can retire as early as age 55 and qualify for an immediate annuity from the system. And there's proposed legislation that'll change this. It'll increase the minimum WRS retirement age from age 55 to the greater of 59 and a half, or the age at which the IRS does not penalize a person for taking a distribution from a 401k. First, apply the change in the minimum retirement age to individuals who are under the age of 40 on the bill's effective date and who terminate WRS-covered employment on or after the bill's effective date. Allow an annuitant who is hired by a WRS employer as an employee to elect to not suspend his or her annuity for more than a total of 36 months, not more than a total of 36 months, and reduce the break in service requirement from 75 days to 45 days. So essentially what this does, it sets up an opportunity for us to rehire retirees in a way that's a little more efficient. Right now there's a 75-day kind of waiting period. And if you work too many hours currently in a for a WRS covered employer, you can lose your retirement, your annuity for a time. It doesn't go away entirely. So example, if we've hired Steve Sperry out of Janesville a couple times, and he knows exactly, like, I can only work this many hours. So that's why, like, last year he was every other day working with us. So this would clean that up, but there are some concerns related to it. So the need to raise the retirement age to maintain the integrity of the system into the future is an assertion that has not proven as fact. Keeping educators who are burned out at age 55 in the classroom for an additional 4.5 years may not be in the best interest of children. changes to WRS may result in significant numbers of retirement age educators leaving the profession a few years before they intended, for fear that this bill will open the door for additional retirement system changes. Changes may result in some under 40 educators who have witnessed the impact of Act 10 perceive this as another attack on educators and possibly leave the profession. It's difficult to imagine how this proposed change will make the profession more attractive to young people. And the compromise, the 36-month return to work window in exchange for raising the minimum retirement age, appears one-sided. It's unclear how the 36-month return to work window will be defined and administered, and will likely add administrative burden for school districts. So there's still a lot of things we're watching in this. I think generally there's quite a bit of support for it, just because we have such a hard time with high-need positions, so math, science, special education in particular, but also substitute teachers. Right? So it's one of the pieces I'll focus on a little bit later. So we'll go on to 7.3, district recognitions. There's a whole bunch of things going on in schools around the holidays and helping people that are less fortunate. So Central High School staff has raised over $500 to help families at Thanksgiving, providing meals for nearly 40 families. The Youth Commission members donated time to local food pantries. Nathan Hale High School Freshman Council, Sophomore Council, and Rotary Club held a school-wide food drive that produced over 2,000 items and $125 worth of grocery gift cards for Mother of Perpetual Help. James E. Dotke High School collected items for La Causa Respite Shelter in Milwaukee. Interact Club members, along with the West Allis Rotary Club, hosted the 7th annual holiday party for adults with cognitive disabilities. The activities included crafts, Christmas bingo, lunch, and an appearance from Santa, who distributed gifts for all. Shared Journeys has an outdoor food pantry in front of the school that they stock for the community. Students visited Mitchell Manor Nursing Home to meet with residents. Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School's Team Phoenix collected toys for the Kids to Kids toy drive at Village of Manor Park. Lane Intermediate School held a Feeding America food drive. West Milwaukee Intermediate School partnered with Quad Graphics to provide 20 Thanksgiving meals to families in our community. They also participated in a toy drive for Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Franklin Elementary School participated in the Hunger Task Force food drive. At Hoover Elementary School, students held a Pennies for Patients for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. At Horace Mann Elementary School, they held a food drive for their community closet and were part of the Kids to Kids toy drive at Village of Manor Park. At Irving Elementary School, the Student Council held a food drive. Jefferson Elementary School participated in a Hunger Task Force cereal drive and toy drive. Longfellow Elementary School held a Food for Families drive. At Madison Elementary School, they set up a caring tree for gift distribution and held a 21-day kindness challenge. At Mitchell Elementary School, they held a craft fair, a fundraiser for the Humane Society, and presented a holiday sing at a local senior living community. At Persian Elementary School, they provided 15 families with a full Thanksgiving dinner with help from the generous donations from the Lions Club and First United Methodist Church of West Allis. At Walker Elementary School, Team X East collected donations for Children's Hospital, volunteered at a local senior citizen center, and collected items for a local animal shelter. And at Wilson Elementary School, they brought cookbooks and turkeys to the West Allis Care Center. So I think they're really important learning experiences for young people, like participating in these things. And what I really want to do is thank all the teachers and educational assistants and secretaries and everybody that helps organize all of this and getting kids here and there and stuff here and there, because it is a big undertaking. But it does add value to what we do to help educate kids. So I'll go on to 10.4. Some quick updates and information items. There were no public comments on December 9th. That was our last meeting, so there's nothing to follow up there. Facility planning, that process is moving forward now. The information, so we'll keep collecting it, but it'll always be up on the website. So there is the logos there now, and the documents that we have so far are available to the public. And as meetings happen, we'll start to update that information. So, and then the very next immediate step is the evaluation of the RFQs for architectural services and for construction management services. And so somebody out of the Finance and Stability Committee will help evaluate the proposals, and eventually we'll bring back one as a recommendation to the board. So that's kind of the next immediate step. We've also scheduled State of the Schools presentations, and we did those last year, a couple in December. The window this year is shorter between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we've got them scheduled out now, January 21st at 10 a.m. That one will be at City Hall. February 6th at 6:30 p.m. That'll be at Central. February 12th at 6:30 p.m. That'll be at Lane. And then we also do one on a PD day for all staff. So that'll be in January. So those are the 4 State of the Schools presentations that'll be rolling out in the coming weeks. And then finally, to the board and to everybody here and to everybody listening, a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and safe travels if you're heading out of town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at the board calendar, going on to item 8. So today, December 16th, we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and immediately following, we do have a closed session meeting. Winter break is Monday, December 23rd through Wednesday, January 1st, and classes do resume on Thursday, January 2nd. Our next regular Board of Education meeting is Monday, January 13th at 6 p.m. Immediately following that meeting is a workshop on the strategic plan update. On January 20th, 2020, at 6 o'clock, we have a workshop to be determined, coming up soon. On January 27th at 6 o'clock, we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Do any board members have any community updates?
I just wanted to do a thank you. I wanted to thank the rec department and teachers, students, basketball teams from Central and Hale, and all other people that participated with the Target Gift Day on Saturday. Over 800 plus children were able to purchase or pick out gifts for themselves and have a visit with Santa. It was a real success, and I'm really proud of everybody that was there. It was fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Noah?
Okay. I just wanted to commend the students at Madison Elementary who was able to stop by their Christmas program last Tuesday. I thought they did a great job. They had singing and they had the prelude orchestra as well that played, so it was really great to step by Madison and see what they were doing over there. So
Great. Brian?
2 things. Want to commend Franklin. I was able to go to both of their concerts. They had one Wednesday and Friday. Both of them were really good performances. Also wanted to note that prior to the STEC tournament on Saturday, the football team will be doing the annual pancake breakfast. $5 will get you all you can eat pancakes and I believe 2 pieces of sausage, and that the funds for that will go to support the football team.
Excellent. I'd like to make a note too, so for anyone who does any work with West Dallas City Hall or has any, does any work with the mayor's office, longtime executive assistant Jeanette Wardinsky is retiring. And there is a retirement party for her tomorrow at City Hall from 11 to 1. So if you're in the area and like to stop by, it's in the art gallery. And then she'll be there. And I'm not sure what her actual last day is, but they're doing the celebration for her tomorrow around lunchtime. So, okay.
Stephanie, I'm sorry, I had one more thing I
Sure.
should say. I forgot about it.
Go for it.
This Friday at the Liberace Auditorium at West Milwaukee, the Sinfonia and the West Dallas Suburban Singers will also be performing. The concert we had last week on Friday was more Suburban Singers focused. The one this Friday will be more Sinfonia focused. So if people are interested, there are tickets available for that. Starts at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And I will just say, I went last week. It was a wonderful concert. Noah did a wonderful job singing. But it's really fun to, see adults perform. And there are some high school students in the Sinfonia, which is cool too, so.
All right, then we will move on to the consent agenda this evening. We have 4 items. Item 9.1, the approval of minutes from the December 9th, 2019 regular Board of Education meeting. Item 9.2, the employment summary. Item 9.3, the supplementary contracts. And item 9.4, the financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated? If not, we would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, we'll move on there. And we'll go on to our action items this evening. Item 10.1 is the high school field trip to Washington DC in spring of 2020.
Okay, I'll do a little introduction here and get
We
Rice
have
and
one
Deidre.
other student who's coming, who's leaving basketball practice right now, so he
Oh.
should be here shortly.
Could we?
Could we move that
one?
item down in the agenda? Are we okay with that?
Mhm.
Wait,
Okay.
we'll move that down, okay. We'll go on to item 10.2, and we'll just quickly table item 10.1. 10.2, the updated human growth and development parent communication.
Adam's been looking forward to this all day.
As well he should.
Good evening. So just wanted to give an update to the board. We're looking at really updating our communication. So we've been working with our Human Growth and Development Committee over the last 3 months. This has really been our first focus in our tasks. Because we start sending out this communication pretty shortly here with our 5th grade preview nights coming up early next month. So we wanted to get some new and revised communication for all of our families in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 10th grade. So really our focus, if you, our old communication that we've been using that was board approved from like 2014 mentions the state statute about 4 times in it, and is very directed in kind of like a compliance fashion. So as a committee, we're talking about the importance of this being a partnership. So as you noticed in the sample or in the communication letters, we talk about the partnership, whereas the family is you know, our one of our #1 partners in this process, and the school is there really to support that. So we wanted to make sure that you know, that was loud and clear in all of our letters. You can see the word physically "our" in a lot of the communication. We put that in there as much as we could because that was one of our #1 goals as a committee. So we're hoping to have these approved in this item agenda tonight, so we can send those out, closing out 2019 and opening up 2020.
Questions, comments? Noah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was emailing back and forth with Adam about this, and I'm still not clear. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
To just ask the question here. I'm focusing on the 10th grade letter. For that course, is there any, for the opt-out, I'm speaking about the opt-out course, so if they decide to opt out of the normal curriculum, for 2 weeks, they would be given something else. In that course, is there any sex education that is given?
If a family would opt out, there would not be.
There would not be.
There would not be, correct.
So I'm confused by the verbiage in the letter, because it says, I would like my student opted out from the Human Growth and Development Unit, and I choose for my child to be provided an alternate abstinence-only unit for the 2 weeks of instruction in an alternate location, which to me would indicate that there is some sex education that is only abstinence-centered sex education.
Sure.
And so if you're saying that there is no actual sex education in that 2-week course, is that correct?
Yeah, so they still get some basic pieces. I have a syllabus in front of me. So they still get some basic pieces on, and they have gotten them in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, STDs, and building quality relationships and marriage. So, but they do not specifically talk about preventing any pregnancies, contraceptions, anything like that. So it's basically that cutout of what it was in the 99-20 course, which was abstinence only health 10 that we had previously.
Which is what this says too.
Yes. So it's still the abstinence centered piece. They don't talk about any birth control methods, anything like that.
So my confusion is that I thought we had, I mean, if this is the same thing from the 99-20 class that we have gotten rid of, why are we still basically providing that same bit in this opt-out piece?
So by state statute, we still have to have an opt-out.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not saying we shouldn't have an opt-out. What I'm saying is, in that opt-out, why are we providing the thing that we said we weren't going to provide, which was what the 99-20 course was?
You have to provide an opt-out for that unit of instruction. The
That-
question was whether or not you have to provide an opt-out. That's a whole separate course. That was then more of a challenge in the scheduling process, more of a challenge in some of the other pieces, but you have to provide an opt-out for that unit of instruction. We were just doing it as a completely separate course that you could take all together with different resources and different, so that there was no exposure to some of the same things that there is in this course.
Right, I understand that. And I understand there should be opt-out. I'm not against the
Yeah.
opt-out. I think that definitely should be there. My concern is that if we're in the opt-out course, saying that this is the only way that you can achieve the goals of not being pregnant, not getting STIs. Now, if you're saying that the sex education simply, this is what the STI is, or this is what, you know, what pregnancy is and how pregnancy works, that's different. But when you, the verbiage of abstinence only is what my concern is, because I think there could be confusion between our abstinence-centered one that's in the course and the abstinence only that is listed in the opt-out. Because what is, as a parent, I think abstinence is important to me, and so I want to pick this thing, but this says centered, this says only, and so that's what I'm going to pick. But in fact, there is no, all it is general information about STIs and what pregnancy is, not like, this is the only way that you cannot achieve these things. That's the delineation that I would like to see made by the district because of the best practice and all that sort of stuff. So that's my concern with how this was and what I was trying to poorly communicate over email with you guys, back and forth with it.
I was not on the rest of the email chain, so. So what you're saying, Noah, is you just want the language changed in the opt-out to be,
To not say abstinence only,
Only,
to say
and to say
health
abstinence
education,
centered.
to say whatever else, but not abstinence only.
Okay.
I'm 100% on board with the opt-out, no problem with that whatsoever. My concern is what we're teaching in that opt-out. Because I would be against, personally, teaching something that says abstinence only in it. Because we removed that, and I think, in my personal opinion, that is not best practice. I would vote against using a letter in that form.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that, for our committee, this is kind of where we had kind of landed. You know, our committee of people that are we have community members, we have some teachers on there, myself on there. That's where we landed with that, as we worked through that for a few meetings.
and that committee is only advisory to the board. So the board can choose to take that committee's advice, or the board can choose to not take that committee's advice. That's obviously what advisory means. So, does anybody else want the change of that language from abstinence only to abstinence centered?
I don't mind it if it's changed. I mean, I know we talked about that last year when we were having why this all was prompted is because we wanted to go away from that whole language of
Yep.
abstinence only. So I think that might be misleading if we start to re-communicate that.
I agree
That's
with
me.
Stephanie.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I would be okay with approving with that change or just approving the other letters and bringing the 10th grade one back just with the change.
Okay, I
If
just
that
want to
might be
make.
too late, I don't know.
Sure.
If not-
I just want to make sure that,
You'd be okay in time?
yeah, I think we would be okay.
Okay.
If we brought it back, the next was January 13th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit later than we want, but we'd be okay.
Okay.
We'd be okay. So we
The
could,
That's
unit
right
of
before
instruction
semester,
doesn't
right?
happen until the late spring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we intended to get the letters out before the semester started, but the unit of instruction doesn't happen until the late spring. So there would be plenty of time to get the information to families before they needed to make a choice.
Okay.
yeah, the biggest one for our purposes right now for calendaring is the 5th grade one,
Mm-hmm.
because that 5th grade letter will start going home in newsletters like at the end of this week.
Okay.
As the 5th grade preview night comes up in mid-January.
And this was the only one I saw that the
Okay.
verbiage in, so.
Heather?
So we just want to change the only to centered? Is that the only change we're asking for? So it's a alternate abstinence centered unit rather than alternate abstinent only unit? Is that what you're,
I don't know what the word abstinence needs to be in there at all, because my understanding is you're not, the curriculum course doesn't include that information. You're talking about basic health information or human growth and development information. Like, I could see that completely being replaced, but I'm not going to say that it absolutely has to be. My preference would be that it was used, removed completely, so there was a clear delineation between what we're teaching
Yep.
and what you're gonna get in an opt-out. But, because if you're not teaching any sex-related stuff in there, then abstinence, I think 99% would say is related to something to do with sex and not having it.
So I think what I hear the board saying, so that I can be clear, is that we'll take the 10th grade letter off of what's being asked to be approved tonight, and then really, if it were reworked to be very clear in like a bullet pointed section that said, this is what will be covered in the one course, this is what you will be missing out on if you are choosing the opt-out.
I like that.
Right, that's
I like that.
clearer
Yeah,
than,
yes.
and what
Yes.
we're looking for?
That sounds
Yes.
great.
Everybody's okay with that?
So then
And
we would
that's
look,
across the
Yes.
table?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring that one back in January with just a clearer, this is exactly the parts of the curriculum that will not be covered if you choose the opt-out. Okay, we're okay with that then?
yep. So then,
Okay.
assuming that there weren't any additional, are there additional questions on the 5th, 6th, or 7th, 8th grade letters? Then we would look for a motion to approve the 5th, 6th, and 7th and 8th grade letters
So
and
moved.
table the 10th grade letter to January 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for working through all that.
Thank you very
Appreciate that.
much.
Mhm.
All right, no
We'll
problem.
clarify that one.
Sometimes it's the details.
Yep.
And then we'll go back to item 10.1, the high school field trip to Washington DC in spring of 2020.
You guys can come on up.
So this particular field trip is part of our Closing the Achievement Gap Consortium work, which is 23 different school districts and/or schools in southeastern Wisconsin all working together. And one of the big projects is called the African American Male Initiative, the African American Female Initiative. And so you've heard a little bit about that last spring. And this is now a field trip that's tied to it. It is fully funded, so it doesn't cost our students anything other than, you know, their own personal spending money. But I'm gonna turn it over to the two of you to talk about the field trip and why it's important and what you're hoping to learn.
Right, so as just a recap, the AAMI is just an African American Male Initiative just to close the achievement gap and provide African Americans who don't normally have the resources and the ability to learn more about just being successful in life. So I personally think the field trip is very important because it teaches many of the African Americans that they could have a career in politics or they could get into larger cities and make a living for themselves. Because as you can see, we only had one black president, like out of about 44, 45. So we're Americans, we should be more diverse and we should see more African Americans, Latinos, Chinese just taking more important places in office. So then that's one thing we hope to aim, just introduce people to politics or just show them that this is a life that is in reach for them.
Well, I feel that as by us taking this trip, it would really impact some students that barely get out of their neighborhoods, you know. I feel that the trip would also help people impact people mentally and physically. By us going to the museums and stuff like that, teaching us little things that we don't see in the history books that we see in the class, giving us an overall review of what we're missing by just sitting in four corners of a room for about an hour, you know? So it gives us a little culture shock, and yeah, I like that.
Questions for the students?
I missed out in an ad. So the other big idea behind being a part of the consortium and these guys getting the opportunity is also to network with other kids who are in AMI from other districts, because all of the districts that are part of the CHVC have the opportunity. So it's been nice when you guys have been able to have events where you can network with some of the students who go to Mequon or Brown Deer or other districts in our area, TOSA, that are all in the consortium. And so the experience is open to all of them, with some pretty strong leadership from people from different school districts who have been able to volunteer to chaperone the trip. So it's fully chaperoned also by school personnel. We don't have anyone going this time, but we will always put it on the agenda. So there's a couple of school districts that'll be sending personnel to help chaperone the trip. But it means these guys will miss time from school. So that's why we're coming forward for approval.
I'd like to see how, by taking this trip and having a successful trip, and how you bring that back, and how you promote that to some of our younger kids and our intermediate students and our elementary students, and looking for the next generation of young leaders that are gonna come up, and we grow this thing from 21 to 42 to 84, you know, and we keep this thing growing. So, you know, I'm all for it, and I'd love to see you guys come back and really provide us some of that leadership and reach out to some of these younger kids as well, so.
Yeah, there was a group from Hale, Brandon, I don't know if you want to talk about this at all, who actually went to Jefferson to do just that. to go during the day and read books to kids and just have that opportunity to demonstrate some of the leadership that they've been able to show so far and start to mentor some of our younger students. So it was a pretty powerful day for them, and some of the smiles on their faces and the pictures that were put out were pretty amazing, both from the little ones and from the older students who had that opportunity to be mentors. So we're looking for more and more and more of those opportunities to showcase some of the really neat things that these guys are doing that participate in the program.
Excellent.
So we need to approve
Yes,
10.1?
we would need a motion.
I move to approve 10.1 field trip to Washington DC.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wonderful. Enjoy your trip.
Have a great
Have a
time.
great
Good
time.
luck, enjoy, and have a good time.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 10.3, the compensation rate for full-time building substitute teachers.
So in our community building circles that Dee and I have participated in every building, and in some of the larger schools, Caitlin helped and Jeff helped and Beth helped run smaller circles, so like a big Central or Hale. But one of the most consistent pieces of feedback that we've heard around the challenges that teachers in particular are experiencing is not being able to secure substitutes. And so Caitlin and Jeff did a lot of analysis on the problem and to try to figure out, is there some place we can insert ourselves to try to resolve some of that. Some of it is just there aren't enough people. But if we can be more competitive, can we attract and keep building subs in particular? So with that, I'll kind of turn it over to the two of you to talk through the plan.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here just to kind of talk about this topic and just to kind of go beyond the introduction that Dr. Lexman just gave. We've been looking at our substitute data for the first couple months of school, and we're starting to see some significant trends just in regards to daily fill rates. We're looking at days of the week. We're looking at a number of different factors. And so we started talking about this topic as a group. And one area that we decided to look at was with our building substitutes. And so not only have we had shortages with our daily subs, but we also had shortages in filling our building sub positions. And so we have, to date, we still have some buildings that haven't filled that position. And so through feedback from the community circles and just the stress of staff members having to teach 6 periods during the day and then have to go fill in for a classroom. Again, we felt that focusing on this group of employees would be the right choice. This is a pilot program, and we're recommending an increase in their yearly salary. And if that gets approved, we're hoping that it would go into effect the first day of second semester, which would be January 24th, and then that would be prorated back to the beginning of the year for the remainder of this year.
Prorated starting January 24th, so they wouldn't get the additional compensation from 7/1.
What we're hoping to achieve with this plan is to recruit more interest in our school district. We're also looking at hopefully retaining our top quality interns in regards to the remainder of this school year. And then finally, we're hoping to improve the morale in buildings, and so teachers are getting their time back so that they're not covering for each other. Our plan is that we've posted for 2 additional building subs for each of the high schools, and then those positions that are still open, there's a couple intermediate and then a few elementary, having conversations with our interns to fill those positions to finish off this school year.
And what we do know about daily subs versus building subs is that building subs are there every single day and attribute to that culture, and they get to know the students rather than having someone who's here once a week or even once a month. So the building subs are really helping build that relationship with the students, which we know is so important to student success.
Can you talk a little bit about funding this?
Yep. So we have a substitute budget, and that substitute budget, because of our low fill rates right now and last year, it's going largely unspent. So last year we had about $100,000 unspent, which went to the unused sick day incentive. So when teachers use 2 or fewer sick days, whatever was unspent in that substitute budget went to their sick day, unused sick day incentive. The range for last year was teachers who used 2 days received $200, and then those who received 0 days received $460, and then there was an incremental increase, like every 0.5 days they did not use. And so when we were looking at all of the components of this, and we had this money that's sitting there, that's unspent, that's going to this incentive, we talked about what's best for our kids, what's best for our staff and our culture, and it was having less strain on the teachers, those teachers that are covering for internally when they can't fill an elementary position, or they're splitting classes, or in the high school level when they have to take their prep and work that extra class, so now they're teaching 6 plus that 7th duty. And especially when we went through all these community building circles, and we really heard that was majority of the concerns within the schools. So rather than having that incentive be as high as it was last year, it likely will be less now, but we're taking that money that's going unspent that would have gone to that incentive and increasing the building sub rate. So it's already budgeted, it's going from one sub budget to a different sub budget. So therefore it doesn't have to necessarily be approved via a budget revision, because it's still within the sub budget, but so it's essentially still set aside in the sub budget, just going to a different specific use.
How would you estimate that's going to impact next year's budget if we were to approve this for this year and then carry that over?
So essentially if we do this next year, I think it was about $100,000 in additional expenses if we continued this. If we kept our sub budget the same, it would be about $100,000 in additional expenses.
Or potentially less strain on the buildings and less
Correct.
strain on.
And teachers being
increase in
able to
morale.
count on their
Is that what-
preps and.
Just some of those
Yep.
other values that we're not, there's the money component, obviously, but the other things that could impact
Yep.
the building. Okay.
About how many daily subs, if we get these other positions filled, will that building sub basically absorb? So we're talking about adding 2 people to each high school and then trying to fill the other positions that we already have at the intermediate and elementary that aren't filled. So my question is, these are subs for people who are out sick, who are on FMLA, whatever, that are out for whatever reason, and so we have a lot of those. And how much of this is going to be able to be filled by the building subs, presuming we can fill them, so that those sub positions are done by the in-house building staff versus trying to find somebody from outside to come in and not fill it. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is how much is this gonna help? What are we looking at for the expenditure of the money and the increase versus, say, increasing the daily rate for sub pay to try to encourage people to come and fill those sub positions that we have?
And we looked at all the different possibilities, and so one of them was increasing the daily sub rate, and we looked at comparison neighboring districts, and we're competitive. I mean, we're not, I wouldn't say we're on the high end, but we're competitive. Where we're not competitive so much is the long-term sub rate. That's where other districts are paying more than we are. But we did look at those other options, and I think what you're asking too is how many positions go unfilled in a day where we would still need daily subs? Am I understanding that?
Yeah, so if you're getting two new building subs, then presumably they're subbing one class for that day that then 6 other teachers don't have to do. So that's like 6, I mean, that's a guess, 6 subs that we would need, or 6 fillings that aren't done by other teachers on their 7th
Yep.
period.
I think my response to that would be, if we are able to have a building sub for every building, that would have a huge impact on some of those daily needs. I don't have an exact number in regards to how many classes it would cover. One thing that we have been seeing, though, is schools that have existing building subs, we've had situations where those building subs would have to go to another building that didn't to help cover. And so by having a building sub in every building, that's the first person that's there every day that would go into a classroom. And so they'd all have that resource. And so I would imagine it would have a big, big impact on elementary buildings. And then it would alleviate the number of staff members that are currently teaching all day and then going in and having to cover because there's 5 to 7 positions that weren't filled for that day. So just the experiences that I've had in buildings, I think that by securing that position so that every school in our district has it, I think it will alleviate a good amount of what we're seeing.
And just to add something really quickly, a building sub versus a daily sub is somebody who's then there all the time. So they get to know the kids. And so when there's a short-term emergency, that is not an unfamiliar person coming into them, whereas a daily sub can sometimes be somebody that they see once in a semester. Plus, that way if the person isn't covered, doesn't have an assigned duty on that day, then they're there still and they're able to pick up extra duties or extra in a classroom or help backfill some things that haven't been filled. So they become a far more regular part of the staff and an additional resource in a way that a day-to-day building sub just doesn't have that same capacity to do because they're not there all the time. So our building subs just become a greater part of that, which is where when those are filled, it just kind of takes quite a bit of that stress down in the buildings in a way that day-to-day subs, which we're thankful for when they are able to come and provide that service, don't have the same capacity to do because they're not there every day.
So I just want to be clear, I'm not against having building subs. My concern is for the overall substitute issue, and that getting building subs will help with it, but it's not going to remove the problem. And I'm more of an advocate for not only increasing building sub pay, but also increasing our daily rate. Jeff provided the committee with the numbers. I've seen the numbers. We're about what everyone else does, but there's districts in our area that pay quite a bit more. And when you're looking at least the reputation of some of those districts, when subs are making decisions on where they're going to go, it's sometimes very easy to figure out where they're going to decide to fill a sub position versus others. And I know Brian brought up other issues that subs have brought up, and Jeff as well, when filling in our district that are things that we have to try and work through and make people feel confident when they're coming and filling sub positions in our district. So I'm an advocate for not only increasing the number of building subs and increasing the pay so we can keep them, but also increasing our daily rate to see, because increasing the daily rate is only a financial issue if we actually fill the positions. And so maybe increasing the daily rate wouldn't actually change anything, I don't know.
We're kind of getting off the subject here, aren't we? We're talking about building subs, not.
But
not stuff.
as it relates to the daily, it does come back full circle, but yes, we do need to make sure that we make a decision.
Discussion should
on
be
it.
under that.
Any other questions on the proposal? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 10.4, the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Great, thank you. So the board's aware that what we've been doing each of the last few years is build a calendar, and we built several options. I'm saying we, Suzette, built several options, and it makes her crazy because there are so many little details inside of it, and you miss one and the whole thing goes off until you find the mistake. And then we usually put a couple of the options out as a survey for parents and staff. There has been an effort in the region to try to line up spring break for the last full week of March, and a number of districts are staying there, but given where Easter fell this year, a number of districts ended up exactly what we're recommending is the week before Easter. So you tie it, it's close enough to the end of March, but tying it there. But it is fascinating that no matter where you land spring break, so in the survey we also had open comments, right? So we have a whole bunch of comments thanking us for having proposed spring break when it lands with their kids' spring break that are in a different school district, right? And a whole bunch of comments that say, why don't you put this in the spring break where my kids have spring break? So, there we are again. But you see the data from the survey. We think it makes the most sense to have option A, spring break the week before Easter. And then we also, and I'll be honest, I was surprised by the amount of support for the 3 additional planning days for elementary educators. And so that's encouraging that, I think parents, understand, because it's a burden for parents to have to figure out childcare if they need it. Recreation will run their, just like they do on PD days, so there are camps on those 3 additional Wednesdays. And again, like I said last week, we are recommending Wednesdays just to try on what happens with both student and staff attendance. So if we did this on a Monday or Friday, it's nice because you feel like you have a long weekend, but does that then suppress attendance during that week if people are taking even longer weekends? So we thought we'd begin by putting this in on Wednesdays to see how that works. So Beth, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, that the Wednesdays, I think it was really important, because it supports the student attendance in the other areas, the other schools. And also, I think it's a good time for professional planning, and that's the title of these 3 days, Professional Planning Days.
Yeah, and an example actually came up today. Deidre was in one of the school improvement plan review sessions, and we're starting to see that as teachers really try on project-based learning and start to have some success with it, they want to go further. And so what they need is more time to connect with not just people in their building, but other people across town.
Community.
But we're seeing some bright spots and have some days where they can actually spend some time together to say, okay, how are you working through this part of project-based learning? Because a lot of the development of expertise in project-based learning is helping the teachers get to the place where they have mastery of the learning through the project. The project is the engagement of the kid, right? But it's the learning side. So having these additional days in the calendar, we're hopeful responds to some of that kind of need as well.
I would just also add, it's a report day for educational assistants. They wouldn't take, they typically in our employee handbook only report when teachers report. And they will be utilized to help with our rec day camps on those days, and also then assigned with teacher groups that some of them are special ed and do some significant planning. So, but they'll be reporting along with all professional educators, all counselors, everyone will be available for the kind of work that they need for their department.
When the surveys go out to parents, teachers, I'm going to focus on parents, do they just get the question, or do they see what the actual calendar will look like?
I got the calendar looked like as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So each letter starts with a little, they're virtually the same. They outline a little bit about the kind of school year we have to have, the number of school days, the fact that we have the voting, and then it follows with option A and option B, the visual, so that they can carefully look at what that might look for them, whether, the week before Easter, the week after.
Questions and comments for Beth? No?
I know I brought this up, well, first of all, within the survey, obviously from the comments, there was people who took it multiple times. I noticed someone said second time, took it the third time. So something that it's not in it. We don't know for sure how many times people take it, number one, so we have to take that into account when we look into the results of the survey when we're using it. But the number of days before the school year starts that teachers are required to be here, looking at what other districts require, is a little bit excessive. So, is there a specific, in years past, I don't believe it was this many days required beforehand. So is there a specific time this year why we're doing 6 days instead of like 4, 3?
So I don't know what was done in the past. Since I've been here, it's been about that many days. There are 6 usually during the school year. How many do we have in this calendar? We end up with 5 or, because sometimes we can only fit 5 in during the
11
school year.
staff development days. And they're
And that will shift one to the beginning of the year. But professional learning for educators, I think, is incredibly important. And, we're improving, but we're not there yet. We still have 2 schools that are in yellow. And I worry about the message that gets sent. If if we start saying, well, we don't need professional development days, you can just have planning because, we think we're good enough. We're not. I'm gonna celebrate like crazy, how far we've come, but at the same time, there are schools that, we have large achievement gaps in, and we've got to have time to help people learn and grow so we can change those results. And the time at the beginning of the year is pretty well received with the amount that there is, and you don't feel like you're rushing into a school year. And we've even tried, and I don't know if it worked in this calendar, I forget, but we learned kind of by accident the first time we tried it is to actually split the days up over 2 weeks, and then have a day off, a day where teachers don't report heading into Labor Day. And what it does, it creates an opportunity for teachers that still need more time in their classrooms to be able to go into their classrooms and work. But it also is really helpful for leaders to have that kind of day built in, because now they have a day to just like make sure everything's in order. The things that were brought up in staff meetings during those 6 days that needed to get cleaned up, there's a chance to do that. So the layout of the days coming into the school year has actually worked pretty well for us.
And I can kind of give a little bit of the history. We did, like Marty said, we used to have one in May that, again, people asked for more time at the start of the school year. So we moved one of the days from May until the start of the school year. This year in particular, it was tight with only having 5 days because we had several schools. We have one day that's the only day we now take for district-wide activities. There used to be required meetings for teachers many of those days, and we've scaled that back quite a bit to give them more time in their collaborative groups at schools or working in committees or doing some planning around that for the school year. This year, with the days that we had at the start of school, some schools were really stressed out at not having enough time because they wanted to do 2-day restorative practices trainings, and those have to be 2 back-to-back days in order for that training to work. So if a whole school did that, out of 5 days, you had 2 days for that, 1 day that is a teacher work day. We always have 8 hours of teacher work time during that week. So you had 2 days for restorative practices, 1 day that was a full district day, and then 1 day for teacher work day. That really only left 1 day for things that are required of teachers, like safe schools training and some of the other things that we have to go over in Act 125 presentation. There's certain things that we have to do at the start of each school year that are simply required. So that left that pretty tight. We've gotten so many requests through these school improvement planning meetings, through teachers to say, I would love to go to one of your PBL boot camps, which Adam ran last summer and did a brilliant job of, and he's followed up with all the teachers, and it's been such a game changer for many of our teachers. Those have to be 3 straight days. So it's hard. So that's why we only offer them in the summer, because you can't do 3 straight back-to-back days. But by having that extra day there, that might be an option for some teachers to take it who can't do it in the summer because they don't have childcare options or they don't have other things. ProAct is 2 days back-to-back. And all of those things, like restorative practices and ProAct and PBL boot camps, can only be done in a certain amount of, you really only can have about 20 to 30 in those groups, or the training doesn't work very well. So to be able to offer a number of those things during a time when the teachers were already planning to be here, last year we did that, and we got a lot of positive feedback on the fact that we could use those days for that instead of offering other trainings during the summer when they really were off of their required time to be at school. So that's a chunk of what those days allow us to do, is give that balance of some of the trainings we want to offer, plus with some of the things that buildings want to do, and still be honoring at least the 8 hours of work time, if not more.
So before the beginning of the school year days, there is time at work. It's not just scheduled professional the entire time. There is
Correct.
work time that's included in
Oh,
that
yeah.
as well? Okay.
Yeah. And that varies a bit depending on what people are working on. But this will also be a year where we adopt a 612 ELA curriculum, so or a core resource, so therefore I'm gonna need more of that time than I normally would in other years, and we wanna be sure we're not taking that time away from something else so that the teachers have time to get access to the new resource and have the opportunity to learn how to use it.
Okay.
Other questions on the calendar, Brian?
Do we recall the difference last year between the parents and the staff in terms of the 2 options? Because I'm just noticing here at 15%, that's pretty significant, and I know again, there's been some instances where people might have taken this survey more than once, so data might be a little skewed, but that difference just kind of jumps out at me, and I was curious how that compared to the previous year.
I can look up that data from last year. We have these same type of reports. I mean, these same things.
No, that would be fine.
1,700 responses. Last year were more options, and we were trying for that March thing, so it might have been a little bit more this year, because it was before and after, but
What we're looking for now? Okay.
That's just my main reason for bringing it up is because I know one of the main issues that was brought up was, again, staff members who have their own children who are in other districts, and I know that's a big concern for them. So again, kind of looking at employee retention and some of those other things, I just want to make sure that I mean, obviously, the majority of parents wanted a specific way, but these are other things we have to keep in mind too, in terms of making sure that our staff are comfortable from the standpoint of their job as well.
Last year, we had the 5 choices. I just found it from last
That's right.
December. So there were the 5 choices, so it really varied. But there were 2 of them that were the top 2 for both the parents and the employees, and that's ultimately what we wound up going with. Was
So
one of those
completely
2.
different
Yeah, so it was a
data
very
sets.
different way to
Yeah. Okay.
categorize it last year,
And-
so.
Yeah, just in the
That's right.
comments on last year's survey, as much as, of course, we want to honor our employees as much as we
Oh, yeah.
frequently can, we also got a lot of feedback from many of our families in the survey and the comments that said they were thankful we didn't have common spring breaks with other people sometimes, because that's the only way they get the time off of work. Because not everybody can take off time at their jobs at
And
the
that's
same
true, too.
time. So that
Exactly.
was like
Mhm.
it was interesting when we read those comments, because we thought, oh, we hadn't thought of that, right? That if all the kids are off at all the same time, and I'm a nurse, not all the nurses can be gone at the same time either. So
Very true.
that was a different perspective on it that was kind of, oh, boy, we hadn't thought of that last year.
Okay, thank you.
Which in a practical sense is incredibly true.
Yes,
So I
right.
know in my office,
Yes.
now that there's different spring break times for people, there's like 3 weeks where there's a whole bunch of people missing, but it's not like 40 people all gone on 1 week when it was difficult for people to go. And I know that that's just one little instance, but I know that that is in practical, does happen for a lot of offices and stuff like that to other employment areas. So. Other questions and comments about the calendar?
I guess I just wanted to, some of the comments pointed to the secondary and their ability to get extra time. What efforts or what things are being thought of to possibly be able to provide that within because I understand there isn't extra time for the secondary as there is for elementary, so we can't provide the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so some of the thinking is what you just approved, is the additional building subs, not only to respond to the substitute teacher need, but also hopefully we have fewer teachers that are teaching 6 and picking up, or covering a class. And then we're looking really for secondary schools for next year. Do we staff at a little bit higher level, so we reduce the number of teachers teaching 6? So that really is the opportunity to create be responsive to what teachers in secondary schools are sharing with us. But it's an investment, right? That comes at an additional cost to the budget, so we're still kind of working through that. And it's really Jeff Borland's analysis to say, okay, and Caitlin, here's what it'll cost if we reduce, this year's by half, by 30%, something like this. We start looking at what the investment will be. And so that's where we are at this point. I mean, the only other option, and this would make Beth and Jeff Borland going crazy, is you changed the length of the school day for high school. And that creates potentially where you don't need then a couple days of instruction to get the same amount of minutes. Right.
There's also a little bit of flexibilities for the high schools and how we use our exam days right now, so, because we have to count them as days of instruction, I should say, they are counted as days of instruction because we have student contact for a certain number of hours, but we're trying to investigate whether or not there's some more creative options. The intermediate is where it's really a little tighter, and that one we haven't nailed down a good idea yet on how to add some more time there. That's the one we're stuck a bit on some of those options. But we're trying to just ask other districts and try to figure out from employees, like, hey, do you have any ideas around how we could creatively do some of these things? Because sometimes people have great ideas and they don't tell you until you ask. So we've been trying to just do a little bit more of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Move on to item 10.5, the 2020-2021 budget calendar.
All right, so last time we talked about the potential, or the question was, could we move back the annual meeting till we know pupil count data? So I looked at the calendar and kind of plotted this out. Pupil count takes 2 weeks, so pupil count is on September 18th, Friday, September 18th. Takes 2 weeks to gather the data and calculate that final actual pupil count, meaning we know the number on October 2nd, which would give us 1 week, or if we get things to Suzette by earlier than Friday, then less than 5 days to get all the materials together for the annual meeting. So it's essentially just too short of a time frame because how long pupil count data takes to calculate. And I did talk to our budget model is through Baird, and I talked to our Baird rep and asked him, what are other districts doing, because he works with so many of them. And he said most of them do it in September, some do it in October, but I would venture to guess that those that do it in October are probably smaller school districts who can do a pupil count in less time than it takes us to do it. So the budget calendar is the same as the one that was presented last week.
Thank you for researching that.
Mhm.
Any comments or questions for Caitlin? If not, we'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks. Thank you. All right, and then move on to item 10.6, the WASB resolutions. Jeff, you'll be going to the conference to be our
Yes,
delegate?
I will.
Okay. So anything else that you want to add on the resolutions?
Well, if there's any questions or discussion, I don't have any answers because we don't meet on this until the Tuesday before the Wednesday that we vote on them.
Right.
But you should have, it was all on board book.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it, I didn't see anything that I thought was, quote, controversial,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna be supporting most of them unless something would come up on the floor.
Sure.
I mean, you did it once.
I did it,
so
I did
you-
twice, yeah,
you
the
did it,
same
you know
thing.
you're aware, you-
There was one thing that I chose not to vote in favor of, that we had approved the resolutions as they were, and somebody had motioned and had made some amendments to change the material message of the amendment. So that one I voted against, because that was not what the board had approved in its, you know, in its materialness. So that one I had chosen, but that would really be the only thing. So as the resolutions stand, I would be in support of them, and for Jeff to vote for them on our behalf. Again, unless there was a material change that would change the whole dynamic of the resolution and potentially put a negative impact to our district. So that would be my recommendation. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? If not, we'd look for a motion for Jeff to move,
Support
to
all
support
of it
them when he
as
goes
a-
to
okay.
conference.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you very much for being our delegate. Let us know if anything else comes up
Thank
after
you,
that.
board members.
All right, so that is the end of our action items, so we will take a quick break and get ready for executive session. So we'll be at 5-minute recess. Thank you.